This is a live that I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my great grandfather from St. Thomas that was a boxer that moved to Puerto Rico from St. Thomas, moved to Puerto Rico, got to Puerto Rico in the mid 1928. From 1928 to 1939, he was boxing in Puerto Rico, basically. And he had my grandfather, which was his son there, and his uncle was, and his uncle was there, which is, I mean, my grandfather and his brother, which is my uncle, was there with him. They was 3 and 4. My grandfather stayed in St. Turce's, right? Some of the anyone that knows Puerto Rico, knows about boxing, knows about my grandfather back in 1928. You know, from 1928 to 1939, anyone that came upon Puerto Rico, he was knocking them out. They called him Al. They called him the man killer, basically. Al mato hombre. That's what they called him. In Puerto Rico, San Juan, you know, is the capital, and basically San Truces is that's where he was at. And my grandfather was raised in Puerto Rico, born in St. Thomas and raised in Puerto Rico. So all he knew was Puerto Rico. My great grandfather already had family in Puerto Rico in the 1800s there. So you know he left St. Thomas and settled in Puerto Rico. This is all big facts. This is documented, and I wanted to give a little history about my grandfather. How I come from a bloodline of fighters. I come from a bloodline of men that put it down. Actually, right? I'm a descendant of these men, and it's in my blood to do the same thing. You know, to be a fighter, whether it's mentally, spiritually, and physically. I'm 13% Puerto Rican, Hispanic, actually, to be a Zach, right? This is all big fact. 13% is a large percentage, and I accept that, right? My great great grandfather fought in Puerto Rico from 1928 to 1939. He has over 200 articles in the museum, the boxing museum, of my grandfather, of my grandfather, my great great grandfather. His name was ESSAU. Anyone that knows ESSAU know ESSAU. All the old timers know that my grandfather was knocking everybody out. He's supposed to have fought in Madison Square Garden in New York City, basically. And I think he had got injured. Something had got injured, and I think that was the end of his career. I think it was a leg injury. Something was some type of injury that ended his boxing career. But from 1928 to 1939, he was knocking everybody out that came upon Puerto Rico that thought they was about that life, basically. He trained, box. They called him the man killer. Al Mata Al Hombre. That's what they called him, the man killer. Some of the some of the clipping, some of the news clipping. My my great great grandfather, right, was a resident of Saint Truces, and they also was in the you know, the how they take the count of everybody that's upon the island, and I think the centers they was in that, right. My grandfather and my grandmother got married in Puerto Rico. They got married in Puerto Rico. Yes, they did. Yes. So my grandfather, right, is 50%. Well, yeah, 50% Puerto Rican, because he was born in St. Thomas and raised in Puerto Rico. So only thing he knew was Puerto Rico. He didn't know anything about St. Thomas. He knew everything about Puerto Rico, him and his brother. When they came, right, to the United States, when they came to the United States, they settled in Spanish Harlem, basically. They settled in Spanish Harlem. My grandfather and his brother. Actual fact. So it goes to say, and I just want to let people know my bloodline, how my bloodline of these men dedicate their life, mind, body, soul, right, to Puerto Rico, basically. And I come from this bloodline, and I feel honored to come from this bloodline, and I appreciate it. To my great grandfather, Esau, that was a true blue boxer. He was a boxer. I think he was middleweight or featherweight. Either one of them. I think he was featherweight or middleweight. That's what my uncle was telling me. That I gotta ask my uncle. I think he was um welterweight. He may be welterweight. He may be. I think he was welterweight, basically. I think. I'm not sure, but he was boxing from 1928, right, to 1939 in Puerto Rico, and was knocking everybody out. They called him the man killer. So I want to dedicate this video and dedicate this content to him, of my great grandfather Esau, that reside in Puerto Rico, San Juan, San Turce. That was his address, and he was there with with my grandfather and my uncle, which is my grandfather's brother. They was raised in Puerto Rico. They 50%. Well, I'm gonna say 100% because they was born in St. Thomas and raised in Puerto Rico at the age of 3 and 4, all the way up till they was teenagers. They went to school all through Puerto Rico, so they spoke Spanish. So that bloodline of Puerto Rico, right, was there basically. And I have actually ancestors that was there during the 1800s of Puerto Rico, basically, before Puerto Rico got their independence in the 1800s. This is actually true facts. So this is my bloodline. So shout out to all of the Boricuas, all of the Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. My grandfather upheld his loyalty and love for Puerto Rico. That's right. Even though he was from St. Thomas, but we already had family already there in Puerto Rico. So he was traveling back and forth from Puerto Rico, St. Thomas, Puerto Rico, St. Thomas. My great great grandfather. That's right. With a boat, he had his own boat, and back then, for you to have your boat and the island jump, you must have money. So he had money. So that was back in the 1900s and 1800s. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of my heritage, and I'm so proud of my bloodline, of my great great grandfather. You know, coming from St. Thomas and settling in San Truces and San Juan in Puerto Rico, and upholding Puerto Rico and knocking everybody out that was coming on the island that was challenging um, Puerto Ricans, basically. That's right. My grandfather was knocking them out. So you can definitely go check that out. Esau. Esau. The next time you visit um, Puerto Rico, go check out the boxing museum. My great great grandfather is over there, right? In the boxing museum, over 200 clippings knocking people out. So that's all I gotta say, and I'm proud of my heritage, and I'm proud of who I am. Peace, y'all. Later.